Hello everyone, Benji-Sales here, and I'm here today to talk to you about the earnings results for Microsoft for their fiscal year 23 Q3. Now, why is this important to you? If you're a gamer, that means we got a whole bunch of information about Xbox and some of their results. Now, in terms of calendar year, this is actually going to be covering the first quarter of the calendar year. So this is going to be January through March. And there's a couple key data points that we got out of this today that we can discuss. Some super interesting things. What does it mean for Microsoft? What does it mean for Xbox? And what does it mean for you as a gamer? So really quick, first, let's just go over the kind of highlights that they gave in the first slide, and then there's a couple tweets, a couple things that we're going to cover after that. So first of all, their overall gaming revenue, it declined by 4%. So a slight decline there. Nothing super significant, but it is trending down. That's for gaming revenue. That's going to include everything, okay, guys? That's going to be their hardware, that's going to be their software, that's going to be their subscriptions. That's just everything rolled into one package. Now, content and services actually grew by 3%, and they said this was primarily driven by Game Pass. Now, this is actually a better than expected result. Microsoft was expecting declines in content and services. So even though the growth here isn't huge, this is actually good news because it's better than what Microsoft thought, and I'll be frank, it's better than what I thought too. Now, content and services is going to cover a ton of things that are not hardware related. So that's going to be the games that they sell for full price. That's going to be Game Pass subscriptions. That's going to be every piece of DLC that is sold through the Xbox store. Really all of that kind of stuff. It's not going to include, of course, console sales, controller accessory sales, things like that will not be part of this. But it grew, and like I said, better than expected result there. Now, this is the big bad news here, and that is that hardware revenue declined by a whopping 30%. Wow, huge declines on hardware. Microsoft is talking about that this is shortages related, and that's primarily going to be around the Xbox Series X. They are still having some issues meeting demand on Xbox Series X, particularly in the United States. I know things in Europe are a little bit different, but in the US, which is their strongest, market, their home market, they are still having some pretty severe shortages on Series X. Series S does seem to be plenty stocked, I would say, in most places that I'm seeing really worldwide. I'm not seeing a ton of issues with Series S stock in Europe or in North America. So to me, this says they really need to prioritize shipping Series X consoles in the coming months. Now, this is massive decline, and we're going to go into it here in just a minute because it does reference a tweet that I had talked about in the past. Now, what does this mean for their actual total revenue, guys? As Morrow points out here, it's their second best Q3 ever, actually, in terms of revenue. 3.59 billion. So really impressive, to be honest, in terms of overall revenue. Content and services and the gaming revenue declines are both better than I thought. I thought that their overall revenue would be much closer to maybe like a 10% drop, and I thought content and services would, decline, a little bit. I didn't know if it would be massive. Microsoft themselves were forecasting, I believe, like single-digit percentage declines on content and services. I thought, again, maybe both of those would be closer to like a 10% decline, but both better than expected. And since they were better than expected, that means that Q3 is extremely strong, actually. There's been a ton of doom and gloom around the Xbox brand online. Are they in huge trouble? No, I'll be honest. This is painting the overall Xbox ecosystem. Now, there is some bad news here in terms of hardware, and we're going to reference the tweet that I talked about here in just a second. But for their overall business, right, because revenue is going to cover everything, they are looking pretty healthy, to be honest. If they can fix some stuff in regards to first-party software output, we've got Redfall right around the corner. We've got Starfield coming up here fast in September. If they can start consistently delivering these big first-party games, that is going to help a ton in terms of stabilizing that business and growing it, right? Because even though that these results are better than expected, the overall revenue still did decline by 4%. But of course, that's going to be mostly driven by the hardware results. And that is going to go into this tweet that I had back on April 11th. And I had said, I have to be frank and honest, Xbox have a hardware sales problem on their hands currently. Xbox Series consoles had tremendous momentum coming out of 2021, and I was very bullish about their performance this gen, but things have slowed. Need to really turn things around this year. And that tweet did end up being very, very true, did it not, guys? I had tweeted that because of all of the charts that I was seeing, whether those were NPD numbers, whether those were the numbers coming out of the UK or Europe. It had been very clear to me that Q1 hardware was struggling big time, and now Microsoft has essentially confirmed what I was saying back then when you see that huge decline by 30%. Now, again, I don't think this is doom and gloom for hardware. So I was being frank. I thought they did have an issue. I think they still do have an issue. You don't want to see hardware revenue declining by such heavy. I mean, we're talking almost a third this early in a cycle. That's not something that you want to see. So they do legit have a problem. They need to turn that around. They need to get those Series X shipments super heavy. They need to be stocking those, in my opinion, right now, outside of holiday season, more than they need to be stocking S right now. Kind of do the inverse of what they've been doing. The focus has been on shipping a lot of Series S because I believe those are easier to manufacture, so they can ship more of them than they can in X. But you know what, guys? S is kind of meeting demand. Let's switch over to X now and really start getting those into markets that want them, like the United States. So, you know, if that was in a better spot, guys, if their hardware was in a better spot, the actual overall gaming revenue probably wouldn't have declined at all, which would have been a very good result, right? If we could have actually seen growth for the overall ecosystem. You know, it's really kind of like the albatross right now holding everything down is that hardware. So they really need to get on top of the ball with that thing. Hopefully Starfield coming up here in a few months is going to move a lot of hardware for them, and that could potentially really, really help things. One other big thing to point out, Satya Nadella said on the earnings call that gaming subscriptions now account for nearly $1 billion in revenue this last quarter. So that's right. Game Pass and Gold, of course, is going to be lumped in there too, but I suspect the vast majority of that revenue is going to be coming from Game Pass, because if you have Game Pass Ultimate, it includes Gold anyways, right? There's going to still be some people in the Xbox ecosystem only subbed to Gold and not to Game Pass. My hunch, though, is that's a very small percentage of people nowadays. I would suspect if you're subscribing to Gold, you might as well pay the little bit extra to have Game Pass Ultimate. It's just a way better deal than being just subbed to Gold. So I suspect Game Pass itself is driving the vast bulk of that gaming subscription revenue. Now, it's a very, very high number. It still looks to me like they're right in between that 25 to 30 million range on subs. I think that number would be a little bit higher if they were over 30 million. So, you know, I think they're still right in that range, 25 to 30 million. They did note that Game Pass subscribers did grow this quarter. They keep saying that every quarter. So it is inching up. Game Pass is still showing steady growth. I don't think, though, that with this number we're seeing explosive growth. Like, I don't think they're close to like 35 or 40 million subs now. I don't know that for a fact, but these numbers don't quite look that way to me. But I don't think that would be a huge shock, because even though Game Pass has had a very strong Q1, you know, you looked at, we had Hi-Fi Rush hit the service during that, we had Wolong, we had Atomic Heart, right? Some pretty nice day one drops on it. One of the things that's really going to drive Game Pass subs, though, are AAA first-party games. And we haven't had a ton of that in a very long time, right? So I'm very interested to see how high that number goes once Starfield hits. That should make things explosively grow. So if they're already hitting $1 billion in revenue for the quarter, that's not for a year, that's not for 6 months, that's just through January through March. Let's keep an eye on this. I really am glad that Satya gave us a number like that. I suspect the Starfield quarter, that Game Pass revenue is going to skyrocket, both because of PC and console. Starfield should be absolutely massive on both. Hopefully they can squeeze in another first-party game this holiday, like Hellblade 2 maybe. And yeah, everyone, that's pretty much my thoughts on the overall results. My overall final thoughts on the Xbox earnings, the way I would describe it, the state of the Xbox business is healthy. We just have to be honest. We're still looking at the second highest they've ever had as a result for this quarter. The content and services is actually doing very, very well. Overall revenue would probably be up if it wasn't for hardware. So overall, Xbox healthy. Hardware, though, not. They do need to address that hardware situation and find a way to drive more console sales, in my opinion, and the main way to do that's going to be Series X. We know that Xbox is not a business wholly dependent on hardware sales anymore. They've branched out in so many other different ways. They're supporting PC heavily, they're supporting cloud streaming heavily, they're supporting, just all of this sort of stuff. So they're not a business only focused on console. So it hurts them a little bit less having the console not exactly doing amazing at the moment, since their business is diversified in so many other ways. But console is still very, very important. So they need to make sure to get that healthy. But overall, guys, pleasantly surprised by the results, even if there are still a few things that we have issues with. Thanks for watching, everyone. Like the video if you like this content, helps the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'll see you all next time. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already. I am Benji-Sales. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe, play some games, and I will see you next time.